somewhere deep inside the world's largest rainforest. Something was wrong. The birds had gone quiet. The trees were bleeding. And a network of criminals was making millions, while the Amazon slowly disappeared. In 2018, Brazil's Environmental Enforcement Agency, IBAMA, received intelligence that would launch one of the most dangerous undercover operations in the agency's history. Satellite images showed massive clearings appearing overnight in protected federal territory.
Land that, by law, no chainsaw was ever supposed to touch.
But someone was touching it.
Someone with trucks, equipment, organized routes, and connections reaching far beyond the jungle floor. The Amazon rainforest covers more than 5.5 million square kilometers. It produces 20% of the Earth's oxygen. This is the Amazon, a realm of extraordinary biodiversity, where it is home to 10% of all species on the planet.
And in 2018, it was losing approximately 8,000 square kilometers every single year.
An area nearly the size of the state of Acre, disappearing in 12 months.
These were not accidents.
Look at the coordinates here. The patterns are clearly deliberate.
Load the next one now. Get that truck moving. Route 9 is clear for 5 minutes.
IBAMA investigators began mapping the network quietly, carefully. They tracked logging trucks moving through routes that did not officially exist. Dirt roads cut through the forest under darkness, invisible to standard maps but visible to satellites above. They cross-referenced deforestation data with illegal land titles.
Is a fraud scheme known in Brazil as grilagem, the forging of property documents to claim protected or indigenous land as private property.
This was not simple poaching or small-scale timber theft. This was organized crime. Wearing the skin of agriculture. The deeper investigators dug, the more dangerous the silence became.
Local whistleblowers reported intimidation.
Communities near the forest edge described strangers arriving in convoys. Surveying land that didn't belong to them, marking trees that had stood for centuries.
In some areas, indigenous leaders warned IBAMA that illegal miners, garimpeiros, had moved into their territories,
poisoning rivers with mercury, driving families from ancestral lands. And behind all of it, a paper trail, pondi, land titles, export documents, shell companies.
Designed to make stolen timber look completely legal by the time it reached a port. Brazil has over 400 indigenous territories inside the Amazon.
Many of these communities depend on the forest, not just for food and shelter, but for identity, for survival across generations.
In 2018, dozens of those territories faced active encroachment. The Munduruku people of the Tapajós region had already been fighting for years to protect our ancestral lands from illegal mining and deforestation.
To keep miners and loggers. Their rivers were contaminated,
Their fish were dying.
Their children were sick.
And the Brazilian state, stretched thin and under political pressure, struggled to respond fast enough to stop what was accelerating by the day.
Investigators began connecting names to operations.
Timber was being extracted from protected areas.
Stamped with fraudulent documentation and moved into the legal supply chain.
From there, it could travel to sawmills, to furniture factories, to export terminals,
eventually reaching markets in Europe, North America, and Asia.
Completely laundered through paperwork.
The buyers at the end of that chain often had no idea.
Or perhaps they preferred not to ask.
O que tornou 2018 particularmente crítico foi o momento político que o Brasil estava vivendo.
Presidential elections were approaching.
Enforcement agencies like IBAMA and ICMBio, Brazil's Conservation Institute,
We're already operating under significant budget pressure. In mind. Environmental fines were being challenged in court.
As the global demand for beef and soy rises, the pressure on the Amazon basin intensifies, creating a critical challenge for land use policy.
were weakening under industry lobbying. The criminals operating inside the forest understood the window they had.
And they were moving fast.
IBAMA's operation resulted in coordinated raids across multiple states. Agents entered territories that had been essentially controlled by illegal networks for months. They seized machinery, impounded vehicles, issued fines running into tens of millions of reais.
But even those who led the operation knew the truth. Fines meant little without enforcement. Equipment could be replaced.
Documents could be reforged.
And the forest, once cut, does not grow back in a year.
It does not grow back in a decade. Some of what was lost in 2018 will not return within any human lifetime.
The endangered species caught in the middle of this crisis had no voice in any courtroom.
The giant anteater, the jaguar, the giant river otter. All dependent on intact forest corridors.
That illegal clearing was fragmenting piece by piece. Scientists warned that biodiversity loss in the Amazon had reached a threshold,
where some areas were approaching a tipping point.
where degraded forest could begin converting to savanna, unable to generate the rainfall cycles that even Brazilian agriculture depended upon.
The criminals destroying the Amazon were, in the long run, destroying the very land they claimed to want.
By the end of 2018, Brazil's deforestation rate had climbed to its highest point in a decade. The network had been disrupted, but not dismantled.
The investigation had exposed the structure, but not sealed the borders.
The satellite images kept coming in.
The clearings kept appearing. And somewhere inside 5.5 million square kilometers of the most biologically complex ecosystem on Earth, chainsaws were already running again.
The Amazon does not ask for rescue in a language any government fully.
It speaks in rainfall and oxygen,
In species counts and river temperatures. In the slow suffocation of things that took millions of years to become what they are. The investigators who walked into that jungle in 2018 understood something that policy documents rarely capture.
That when the forest loses, everything loses. Every human being on this planet breathes air that the Amazon helps create.
And in 2018, that forest was on trial. With no guarantee that justice would arrive before the verdict did.
The trees are still standing, some of them.
But the clock that started running in 2018
has never stopped. And the only question that remains is whether the people who have the power to stop it will act.
Before the Amazon becomes the world's most devastating lesson.
In what happens when we look away.